What if everything you thought you knew about the world's most elite warriors was completely wrong? What if the unit everyone feared, the one plastered across Hollywood screens and whispered about in military briefing rooms, wasn't actually the strongest? What if somewhere in the shadows, buried beneath layers of classified missions and deliberate silence, there existed a force so lethal, so precisely engineered for destruction, that even the legends trembled at the mention of its name? Buckle up, because what you're about to read is going to shatter every assumption you've ever had about special forces. Let's start where most people don't, not with the giants, but with the ghost. Somewhere along the southern coast of England, in a harbor city called Portsmouth, roughly 300 men go to work every single day, doing things the rest of the world will never hear about. They are the SB's Britain's Special Boat Service, and they are, without question, one of the most dangerously underestimated fighting forces on the planet. Born in 1942 in the chaos of World War II, their original mission was to creep through darkness and tear apart German naval supply lines before the enemy even knew anyone was in the water. Decades later, nothing has changed except the targets. These men slide beneath the surface in swimmer delivery vehicles, tiny, four-man submersibles that ghost through the water at 4 knots, hugging the seafloor at 15 meters depth, delivering operators directly into the throat of enemy territory without a single ripple on the surface. During the 1982 Falklands War, while the world watched surface battles unfold, SBS operators had already been ashore on Pebble Island for days, silently mapping Argentine radar stations and ammunition depots before guiding British airstrikes that wiped them off the map entirely. This is what makes the SBIBs terrifying. Not the noise, the silence. But if the SBIBs is a ghost, then Russia's GRU special forces are something far older and far darker, a blade that has been sharpened through more than a century of blood. Founded in 1918 when the world was still stitching itself back together after the First World War, the GRU has survived purges, collapsed empires, and the collapse of the Soviet Union itself, emerging each time sharper and more dangerous than before. Western intelligence agencies don't talk about the GRU the way they talk about other units. They don't use words like impressive or formidable. They use words like unpredictable and impossible to contain. During the Soviet era, when NATO planners were drawing up maritime blockade strategies, the GRU was already 3 steps ahead, building dedicated naval special reconnaissance brigades whose operators could dive, demolish, navigate submarines, and vanish into any coastline on Earth. Then came 2014, and the world got to watch the GRU work in real time. Russian operators slid out of Black Sea Fleet submarines, surfaced in Crimean harbors under cover of darkness, seized radar installations and communications hubs, and by the time the sun rose, the strategic landscape of Eastern Europe had shifted permanently, and not a single shot had been fired. Military historians would later call it the silent conquest. The GRU didn't win that operation with firepower. They won it with patience, precision, and the kind of cold, methodical planning that turns entire geopolitical situations upside down before breakfast. Now here is where the story gets loud. Because if the SBIS is a ghost and the GRU is a blade, then the United States Navy SEALs are a thunderstorm. SEAL stands for sea, air, and land. And that name is not marketing, it is a promise. Since their founding in 1962, this unit has been handed every nightmare scenario the American military could conjure, and they have delivered every single time. Their equipment reads like a weapons catalog from the future. M4A1 rifles with holographic sights and grenade launchers, MP7 submachine guns for close quarters elimination, reconnaissance drones feeding real-time intelligence into the ears of operators who are already moving before the picture is even complete. In 1991, SEAL swimmers penetrated Iraqi harbors, planted charges on warships, and cut Baghdad's naval lifeline in a single night. 20 years later, on a moonless night in Pakistan, SEAL Team 6 flew low and fast across the border from Afghanistan, dropped into a compound in Abbottabad, completed their mission, and were wheels up and gone in 40 minutes flat, zero casualties, zero hesitation, zero margin for error. That raid rewrote the manual on what a special forces unit is physically capable of achieving. And yet, even with all of that, the budget, the technology, the battlefield mythology, the SEALs are still not the most extraordinary unit on this list. That distinction belongs to China's Jiaolong Commando Unit. And the reason is simple. No force on Earth has risen faster, harder, or founded in just 2002, making it younger than some of the operators currently serving in the SBs. The Jiaolong emerged, not from decades of institutional history, but from sheer national will and an obsession with excellence that borders on terrifying. Their Type 726 hovercraft screams across open water at 50 knots, capable of depositing a full main battle tank directly onto a hostile beach with no transition delay. Their domestically developed closed-circuit rebreathers give operators 6 full hours of silent underwater movement at depths exceeding 60 meters, performance that rivals anything produced in the West. Their QBS-06 underwater assault rifle fires lethal specialized rounds at effective ranges beyond 20 meters beneath the surface, a capability most navies in the world are still trying to develop. But the thing that truly separates the Jiaolong from every other unit on this list isn't the equipment, it's the mission profile. When Chinese citizens were trapped in war-torn Libya and Yemen, it was the Jiaolong who opened the escape corridors. When pirates threatened commercial shipping lanes in the Gulf of Aden, it was the Jiaolong holding the line. They are not simply a weapon of war. They are a statement of intent, proof that China's reach now extends to every ocean on the planet, and that wherever Chinese interests exist, there is a force capable of protecting them with extreme prejudice. And then there is number one. Oh, number one. If everything that came before was a story about excellence, discipline, and the cold mathematics of elite warfare, then what comes next is something entirely different, a cautionary tale wrapped in tragedy, seasoned with absurdity, and somehow made even more surreal by the fact that the people involved refused to acknowledge any of it. India's NSG Black Cat Commandos were founded in 1984, equipped with genuinely impressive hardware, and staffed with soldiers who, on paper, should have been capable of handling almost any. On the night of November 26, 2008, they got the chance to prove it, and what unfolded over the next 4 days left the entire world simultaneously horrified and speechless. 10 terrorists. 10 simultaneous attack sites across Mumbai. Police dead. Civilians running. The city bleeding. And the Black Cats, India's supposed apex predators, were sitting in New Delhi, waiting for a transport plane that had to fly in from a different city just to refuel before it could pick them up. 4.5 hours burned away before the first operator even lifted off the ground. 3 more hours in the air. Then, buses. By the time the Black Cats reached the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, 9.5 hours had vanished since the first shots were fired. Inside the hotel, the situation somehow got worse. There were no floor plans, not one. The operators storming a 5-star labyrinth of corridors and hidden staircases had absolutely no idea where anything was, and the only reason they made any progress at all was because a single hotel employee, unarmed and terrified, chose to risk their life and guide them through the building by memory. 200 elite operators, 10 terrorists. 3 days, 20 dead, 50 wounded on the commando side before it was finally over. The global military community had a word for it. Several words. Actually, none of them flattering. The Black Cats went from being India's most feared unit to being something far more complicated. A symbol of what happens when bureaucracy, logistics failures, and institutional arrogance collide with real-world chaos in real time. Here is the brutal truth that runs through all 5 of these stories. The strongest special forces unit on Earth is never the one with the biggest budget or the most famous name. It is the one that can operate when everything goes wrong, when the plan dissolves on contact with reality, when the mission demands improvisation at 3 in the morning in water so dark you cannot see your own hands. The SBEs does it quietly. The GRU does it coldly. The SEALs do it loudly. The Jiaolong are learning to do it in every ocean simultaneously. And the Black Cats, well, the Black Cats taught the world exactly what happens when a unit stops training for the chaos and starts believing its own mythology instead. That lesson, in its own brutal way, might be the most valuable of all.